I just spoke with one governor a short time ago, that being Republican Bob Mcdonnell of Virginia, who's going to fill his $4 billion budget deficit without raising taxes. Take a listen. You have, I think, a $4 billion deficit, but you're not raising taxes. How are you doing it?
Well, Larry, in the worst economy in modern Virginia history, we thought it was absolutely the wrong policy. Families are having to make tough decisions. Businesses are cutting back, and they expect government to do the same. So we had a $4 billion deficit on top of a $7 billion already cut by my predecessor. But we decided it was the right thing to do to reduce spending. And there were some tough decisions in education and health care, but we got through it. Balanced budget done on time that does make some fairly significant cuts in spending, but it is now going to go into effect July 1st, and I think it's the right policy for Virginia.
Tell us some more about the cuts. I mean, it seems to me this is a question of political leadership and political will, and I want to ask you what the response is to the citizens and taxpayers of Virginia. Talk to me about the cuts.
I think it was overwhelming during the course of my campaign last fall, when I talked about keeping taxes and spending to a minimum, particularly in light of what was going on at the federal level with higher taxes and intrusion in the free enterprise system, that this is what the citizens expect. So I was clear when I started my term 2 months ago to the General Assembly, which is has a Democrat Senate, Republican House, that we were not going to have a tax increase. We're going to find ways to work together and cut spending. The good news is that's what they did. And but we made tough choices. Education was cut about $250 million. That's K through 12. About another $300 or $400 million in health care. And Larry, we did a lot to reform our pension system. As you know, many states are going through tough times with pensions. We reduced some benefits for new employees, so we reduced the state's contributions to the pension fund in the short term. All told, accounted for about $2 billion of additional cuts this year. But we're going to get through it, and I try to just tell people that we got to work together during these tough budget times. We will recover. We have during every one of the 8 recessions since the Great Depression, but we can't continue to raise taxes and spend more. That's not a recipe for success.
I mean, it seems to me that's really where the rubber meets the road, and I want to focus on government union pensions and pay. It's running significantly above the private sector, 50% above the private sector, according to some estimates. Governor Christie of New Jersey is doing the same thing. How tough were you on the state government workers?
Well, you know, I've been a state government worker myself for 20 years, and our hardworking state employees, about 103,000 of them, haven't had a raise in about 4 years, and many of them do great work. But what we said was, look, we cannot, looking at the actuarial tables, Larry, going forward, we cannot keep the same level of, I think, very good and generous benefits for our employees and still be solvent without dramatic new contributions from both the employee and the state government. So effective July 1st with new legislation, we've pared back some of the benefits going forward, which will continue to help us towards having a balanced budget. We've also, in the VRS, Virginia Retirement System, and we've also reduced some of the payments that individuals and the state makes into the retirement system, which honestly underfunds it in the short run, and we're hoping to pay that back over a period of about 10 years. But pension reform is clearly important to our state if we're going to maintain a high level of solvency for our employees in the future.
Some say you've moved the budget back to 2006 levels. Is that true?
That's about the level of spending. Now, the footnote, Larry, is over the last decade, spending in Virginia has gone up by 75%. That's 28% faster than the rate of growth in population inflation. So you can't look at those numbers in isolation. You have to see in the good times, in the late 90s and, of course, 04, 05, 06, when we were growing at double digits in some of those years, we expanded dramatically the amount of government spending, and now it's time for the bills to come due. So we're paring back, but yes, paring back a couple years in the level of spending, but that's a budget that's nearly doubled in the last 10 to 12 years.
Well, that's, I think, what families are doing. I think that's what small and large businesses are doing. I think, you know, the Tea Party crowd and others are furious because government hasn't done that. So you're doing it. As I understand it, you're also embarking on some offshore drilling.
Well, we're real excited about Virginia's opportunity, Larry, to be the first state on the East Coast to drill for oil and gas off the Atlantic coast. The 2 federal moratoria expired, both the congressional and the presidential, about a year and a half ago, and we're waiting any day now for Secretary Salazar to rule on our request to drill in 2011 off the coast. We've already been approved in the lot, lease sale number 220 for 2011, but the current administration had signaled that they might slow it down. We've made a full court press. Most of the congressional delegation from Virginia supports it. And we can believe it can be done environmentally safe. It'll bring in hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenue, billions in capital investment, thousands of new jobs. And it's the right thing to do for American energy independence. Right. We'd like to be the leader on the East Coast.
We're going to lose the feed. I'd love to spend more time with you, Governor. All I can say is congratulations. I think you're going to be a national model, and I think there's a lesson here for the federal government as well. Governor Bob Mcdonnell of Virginia, thanks for coming back, sir.
Hey, great to be on with you. Thank you.
You know, I think he is a national model. I think this Virginia story, closing the budget gap of $4 billion or so, which is a huge amount of money for a state like Virginia, without raising taxes and with across-the-board cuts. He's not afraid to go after the government pensions or the health care or the education. And as he said, over the past 10 years, spending up 75% has totally outstripped population growth and inflation growth. And notice he mentioned the word free enterprise economy. He wants to maintain Virginia's vibrancy. And, of course, I love his drill, drill, drill message on offshore oil and gas, because it'll help our energy story. It'll also help the state of Virginia get into that business and reap some revenues and royalties. McDonnell is a star in the national political firmament, and his story to close the budget gap without raising taxes is the absolute counter to all these other states that feel they have to raise taxes. Anyway, I love that interview, and I think my hat's off to Mr. Bob McDonnell.